What if I told you the new Superman was rejected more times than he can count? That he didn't come from money, didn't have connections, didn't blow up on TikTok, or date a celebrity to get attention. And yet, he just landed the most iconic role in cinema history. His name is David Corenswet. And no, he didn't take shortcuts. He took the long road, the one no one claps for until the spotlight hits. While other actors waited around for someone to discover them, David did something most people overlook. He started building. Quietly. Consistently. Like an entrepreneur with no funding, no audience. Just obsession. He wrote his own scripts. Shot his own content. Studied late. Took roles no one watched. He invested in himself like he was the startup. And when opportunity finally came knocking, he didn't need to act ready. He was. This isn't just a Hollywood story. This is a masterclass in the winner's mindset. How to turn rejection into momentum. How to bet on yourself when no one's betting on you. How to build a brand so strong that one day, the world can't ignore you, even if they tried. So if you've ever felt like success is taking too long, if you're grinding in silence wondering if anyone will ever see your value, if you're tired of the noise, the trends, the overnight virality, and just want to build something real, then lean in. Because David's story isn't about luck. It's not about fame. It's about strategy, resilience, and legacy. The same things that drive every successful creator, digital entrepreneur, and business builder in today's world. And we're going to break it all down, step by step. How he positioned himself like a brand. Why he stopped waiting for permission. And what this all means for you, if you're building a business, a following, or a better life. So if you're serious about becoming unstoppable, in your craft, your business, or your mindset, hit that subscribe button now. Because this is more than a story. It's a playbook. Now let's dive in. Here's how David Corenswet became Superman. Long before he wore the cape. David Corenswet didn't burst onto the scene with a viral audition tape or a flashy reality show debut. He wasn't handed the keys to fame by a famous family or a headline-making scandal. He built his name brick by brick, the way an entrepreneur builds a brand. Quietly, deliberately, unshaken by the noise around him. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, David came from a family that wasn't part of the Hollywood circuit. His father was a stage actor-turned-lawyer, and his mother worked as a non-profit executive. Art, work, and purpose. Those were the cornerstones of his upbringing. But David didn't just grow up watching movies. He studied them, obsessed over them, not in the way kids collect posters or memorize lines, but like someone reverse engineering the machine behind it all. At 9 years old, most kids dream of being Superman. David dreamed of becoming the actor who earned the role of Superman. Even then, he didn't just fantasize about wearing the cape. He wanted to be ready for it when the time came. And that mindset, it shaped everything. In high school, while others were focused on social status, David was writing screenplays, shooting his own short films, studying camera angles. Not for extra credit, for passion. He applied to Juilliard, one of the most prestigious acting schools in the world, and got in, not because of luck, but because he treated every opportunity like it mattered, because it did matter. Every rep, every class, every scene. It was all training. And here's what most people don't know. Juilliard isn't just about talent. It's about endurance. It's 4 years of being broken down and rebuilt. Being critiqued in front of your peers, being told your best isn't enough, and then being asked to try again. David didn't just survive that environment. He thrived in it. He soaked up the criticism, took notes, practiced endlessly. He treated acting like an athlete treats conditioning. It wasn't performance. It was preparation. After Juilliard, the road wasn't glamorous. He didn't go straight from graduation to red carpets. He took bit parts, independent films, TV cameos that lasted 30 seconds, And here's where most people fold. Here's where self-doubt creeps in. Where actors abandon the grind and say, maybe it's not meant to be. But David didn't fold. He kept showing up. He worked as a writer, as a director. He created his own opportunities when none were being offered. He didn't sit around waiting for someone to cast him. He cast himself in his own projects. That's an entrepreneur's mindset. Don't wait for the market, become the market. Then, in 2019, something shifted. He was cast in The Politician, a Netflix series created by Ryan Murphy, one of the biggest names in television. It was the break he'd been working toward. But even then, he didn't let the buzz distract him. He kept writing, kept training, kept treating every job like it was a stepping stone, not a finish line. He followed that up with Hollywood, another Murphy project, this time as a lead. A bold, nostalgic, high-concept show that reimagined the golden age of Hollywood through a modern lens. David's performance stood out. Understated, yet magnetic. Classic, yet current. Suddenly, people started paying attention. Casting agents, directors, fans. But even then, David didn't go chasing fame. He did something most rising stars don't. He slowed down. He studied. He strategized. Because he knew the industry was watching now. And when the spotlight finally hits, you don't get time to figure out who you are. You have to already know. So David kept building, not just as an actor, but as a brand. He leaned into discipline, took on projects that challenged him, stayed away from drama and distractions. And as the roles got bigger, so did his preparation. By the time rumors started circulating that he might be the next Superman, David was already ready. He didn't panic. He didn't start changing himself to fit what he thought the world wanted, because deep down, he'd already done the work. And when James Gunn, the director of DC's new Superman reboot, officially cast him as the next Clark Kent, it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't politics. It was the result of years of consistent, unglamorous, often unseen work. And here's the truth most people miss. David Corenswet didn't just get lucky. He built his opportunity like a founder builds a company. He took himself seriously when no one else did. He showed up when no one was clapping. He kept creating when no one was watching. And when his moment came, he didn't flinch. He stepped in like he belonged there. Because he did. This isn't just a Hollywood origin story. It's a blueprint for anyone building something from scratch, whether that's a YouTube channel, a business, a personal brand, or a dream no one understands yet. It's a reminder that every rep matters, that discipline compounds, that even in a world obsessed with virality, consistency is still king. Because one day, someone's going to look at your journey and say, wow, they came out of nowhere. But you'll know better. You didn't come out of nowhere. You built every inch of your rise. Just like David. David Packard Corenswet was born on July 8, 1993, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a city known more for its grit than its glamour. He didn't grow up surrounded by agents and studio lots, but in a house filled with books, ideas, and stories. His father, John Corenswet, was an Ivy League-educated lawyer who had once pursued acting himself, spending years as a stage performer in New York before transitioning into law. His mother, Caroline Packard, worked in public policy and non-profit leadership. And this matters, because while David wasn't born into a Hollywood dynasty, he was raised in a home that valued depth, service, and intellectual ambition. He grew up in a household where dinner conversations weren't about gossip. They were about philosophy, social justice, classic cinema, and the complexities of being human. That intellectual and emotional depth would shape not just the roles he would one day choose, but how he would approach fame itself. Unlike many actors chasing the spotlight, David was never interested in celebrity. He was interested in craft, in psychology, in transformation, in the architecture behind powerful performances. He once said in an interview that acting, to him, was a way to explore the parts of ourselves we don't usually get to say out loud. That's not the language of someone chasing red carpets. That's the perspective of an observer, a thinker, a builder. Even as a child, David wasn't the loudest one in the room. He was curious, analytical, always watching. His teachers described him as mature beyond his years. Not just smart, intentional. He wasn't interested in the easy wins. He wanted to understand things. That hunger for understanding extended into film and storytelling. While his friends were playing video games, David was dissecting films by Stanley Kubrick and Sidney Lumet. He loved character-driven stories. Movies that made you sit with uncomfortable truths. Films that left you changed. And that passion wasn't passive. He wasn't just watching, he was learning. Writing scripts. Studying editing software. Experimenting with lighting, framing, and pacing in his own DIY short films. By the time he reached his teenage years, he had already written and directed several student projects. But what really made him different was his approach. He wasn't in a rush. He wasn't trying to go viral or get discovered overnight. He treated his dream like a long game, like a startup founder with no investors, just a vision. He knew that the world wasn't going to hand him a blockbuster role just because he had good looks or raw talent. He needed to earn it, with relentless repetition, feedback, and evolution. So when he got accepted into Juilliard, one of the most competitive drama schools in the world, it was less of a lucky break and more of a logical next step in a life that had been quietly preparing for this for years. And Juilliard is no ordinary school. It's the Navy SEALs of the performing arts world. Only a handful are admitted each year. Fewer still make it through. At Juilliard, David was surrounded by actors who had trained for this since childhood. He wasn't intimidated. He was inspired. He pushed himself harder, stayed later, asked more questions, practiced monologues dozens of times not because he had to, but because he wanted to understand every layer. He also started writing more seriously. Not just for class, but for himself. He explored themes like legacy, identity, ambition, the same themes he was quietly grappling with in his own life. Even then, he knew he didn't want to be just an actor. He wanted to create, to write, to direct, to eventually build his own world of stories, stories that mattered. In many ways, David's mindset was less like a traditional actor, and more like a creative founder. Someone who doesn't just want to be part of a story, but to own the entire process of storytelling. That's what makes him different. That's why his rise feels so refreshing in a culture addicted to shortcuts. Because David didn't take a shortcut. He built a foundation. He mastered his tools, strengthened his voice, refused to bend to trends. And because of that, his success feels sustainable. Rooted not in hype, but in substance. And the more you look into his journey, the more you realize, this isn't a story about overnight success. It's a story about delayed gratification, about vision, about becoming the person worthy of the role, long before the role ever existed. He wasn't just preparing for Superman. He was becoming the kind of man who deserved to play Superman, even if it took years to get there. Because David understood something powerful. When the right opportunity comes, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation. And David Corenswet? He was ready. He had just landed the role of Superman. For most people, that's the top of the mountain. The moment you pop champagne and call it a legacy. But for David Corenswet, it wasn't a finish line. It was a starting gun. Because behind the curtain of this iconic casting was something far deeper. David wasn't just stepping into the red cape. He was stepping into a high-stakes game, where every move is watched, judged, compared. One wrong step, and you're a headline. One misquote, and you're a meme. And he knew that. But he also knew something else. This wasn't just about Hollywood. This was about building brand equity. A legacy. A business. Because in today's world, you're not just an actor. You're a platform, a walking enterprise. And David? He wasn't going to let the opportunity go to waste. As the world buzzed about his role, he was thinking long-term. Licensing, intellectual property, ownership. He had studied the paths of people like Ryan Reynolds, who turned acting into a media empire, and Dwayne Johnson, who flipped fame into full-blown entrepreneurship. He wasn't just studying how to act like Superman. He was studying how to leverage being Superman. And that's what most people miss. They think success is just about getting the part. But David knew, getting the part just gets you in the door. What you do once you're in, that's where the game is won. So he started investing in himself, not just artistically, but strategically. He hired top-level coaches, not just for acting, but for business. Financial advisors, branding consultants, people who understood how to scale visibility into impact. He began mapping out content strategies, learning the mechanics of storytelling in the digital age. Algorithms, platforms, SEO, personal narrative, all of it. Because when the trailers drop and your face is on every billboard, the real question becomes, what else are you building while the world is watching? And this wasn't vanity. It was vision. Because David didn't want to just be remembered as the guy who played Superman. He wanted to be remembered as the man who rewrote what it means to be a modern creator. Someone who took the spotlight and turned it into a solar panel, fueling a bigger mission. So while others were celebrating his casting, he was creating, quietly building a team, planning investments, eyeing startup collaborations. He wasn't buying flashy things. He was buying equity, in himself, in his future, in his freedom. And maybe that's the most entrepreneurial thing about his journey. His mindset. David never believed in overnight success. His career was built brick by brick. Indie films, short roles, off-camera grind. While other actors were chasing clout, David was chasing craft. And that difference, that discipline, is what prepared him for this exact moment. But here's where the story really hooks. The world began to test him. The internet, brutal as ever, started drawing comparisons. Was he too unknown? Too inexperienced? Too serious? Not charismatic enough? Suddenly, every detail of his past became a hot take. And as the noise grew louder, David had two choices: retreat, or respond with results. He chose the second. Silently. Strategically. He started giving interviews, not to prove himself, but to clarify his voice. Not just as an actor, but as a man who thinks, leads, and builds. His words were measured, not rehearsed. His energy was calm, not desperate. And it worked. People leaned in. They saw the difference. This wasn't just a kid who got lucky. This was someone who had earned it. Through silence. Through struggle. Through years of mastering both the external role and the internal discipline it takes to lead anything meaningful. And this is the part that matters to you, the viewer watching right now. Because David's story isn't just Hollywood inspiration. It's a blueprint. He didn't wait to be discovered. He created value before anyone handed him permission. He didn't just read lines, he wrote a life worth following. Think about it. How many people spend years waiting for their big break, hoping someone picks them, validates them, saves them from mediocrity? David didn't wait. He trained like it was coming. He lived like it was inevitable. And when it finally showed up, he was ready, mentally, emotionally, and financially. That's the real hero arc. That's entrepreneurship in motion. And here's the most powerful takeaway. In 2025, your face may open doors, but your mindset decides whether you keep them open. David's journey proves that you don't need to be born into opportunity. You build opportunity, with obsession, with vision, with action. You don't need millions of followers. You need millions of moments where you choose growth over comfort. Action over excuses. Discipline over distraction. And that's exactly what he did. While the internet was busy debating whether he'd fill the cape, David was busy filling the bank. Not just financially, but in terms of purpose, focus, and ownership. That's what every digital entrepreneur needs to hear right now. That your power isn't in what they see on the outside. It's in what you're building behind the scenes. And David Corenswet? He's not just playing a superhero. He's becoming one smart, silent, strategic move at a time. David Corenswet's story is not just about landing a role. It's about building something that lasts. A brand. A presence. A voice. For anyone watching right now, wondering how they too can go from unknown to unforgettable, this part of David's journey is your blueprint. See, most people think success in the entertainment world happens with a lucky break. But David's rise proves that consistency, strategy, and a relentless focus on identity are what truly build momentum. Before becoming Superman, he was a man studying not just scripts, but systems. Systems that would help him break out of the crowd. While other actors were only focused on agents and auditions, David was focused on leverage. Let's look at the numbers. Before his Superman casting was announced, David had under 200,000 followers on Instagram. In the first 72 hours after the casting news broke, that number surged past 1.2 million. Why? Because visibility matters. Because when the spotlight finds you, you better have something to say, and a brand that keeps people watching. And David had that. Quietly, consistently, he'd been sharing behind-the-scenes moments, insights from indie projects, writing pieces, personal thoughts. He wasn't just an actor. He was building connection. And when opportunity knocked, he didn't just answer. He already had the house ready. Now pause for a moment and think, what if you did the same? What if you started today to build your platform, your voice, your value, even before your big break? Because here's the truth. Your moment is coming. Maybe not on a Hollywood set. Maybe not in a cape. But it's coming, in the form of a job interview, a product launch, a podcast invite, a viral video, or a customer discovering your work. The question is, will you be ready? David was. And here's how you can be too. First, know your craft. David studied acting deeply, not just the art of performance, but the business of storytelling. He understood what made a character land emotionally, what made a performance resonate. He worked with coaches, read everything from Shakespeare to screenwriting handbooks. That obsession with quality made him undeniable. So whether you're in art, business, design, fitness, crypto, or coaching, learn your field. Study the people at the top. Reverse engineer their moves. Don't just consume content. Analyze it. Turn YouTube videos into case studies. Turn interviews into strategies. Learn every day. Second, build your presence online. David didn't wait until he was famous to show up on social media. He used it as a portfolio of energy, thoughts, taste, aesthetics. You can do the same. Your Instagram isn't just a social page. It's your storefront. Your TikTok isn't just for dances. It's your broadcast tower. Your YouTube isn't just video. It's your legacy in motion. And don't think you need 1 million followers to succeed. Start small, but start real. David's first short film barely got traction, but it taught him editing, storytelling, pace. His next project was better, then better again. By the time opportunity found him, he wasn't practicing anymore. He was performing. That's the game. Sharpen the sword before the battle. Now let's talk about leverage. David didn't have a trust fund or Hollywood parents. What he had was internet leverage. Free platforms. Free content. Free distribution. You have the same tools. Whether you want to sell art, write books, teach a course, create a podcast, coach others, or build a business, your customers, your fans, your audience is online. The formula? Clarity plus content plus consistency. Get clear on what you stand for. Create content around that. Stay consistent no matter how small the numbers look in the beginning. David didn't blow up overnight. But when the casting team researched him, his presence spoke volumes. His past work, his voice, his commitment, it was all there, visible. And that's what sealed the deal. Imagine if you were Googled today. What would they find? Is your website active? Is your LinkedIn up to date? Are your reels or testimonials ready to go? This isn't about being famous. It's about being ready. And here's the part nobody talks about: investing in yourself. David spent years investing in acting classes, voice training, dialect coaches. Not because he had gigs lined up, but because he believed in becoming world-class. You might need to do the same. That online course, that business mentor, that branding specialist, it's not an expense. It's a seed. And yes, it takes money. But money flows to those who take themselves seriously. In one interview, David mentioned how he spent over $10,000 in his early years just on training and camera equipment, before he ever made a cent. That's what belief looks like. So if you're stuck deciding whether to launch that brand, hire that coach, or build your website, take the leap. Winners don't wait for perfect timing. They create it. Next, network like your life depends on it. David connected with creators on indie projects, student films, small sets, creative collabs. That's how he stayed visible. One of his earliest scripts caught the attention of producers who would later work with Netflix. Not because he pitched them aggressively, but because they'd seen his work online. Quiet consistency builds credibility. Use LinkedIn. Use Reddit. Use Twitter. Join mastermind groups. Show up in comment sections. DM people with respect. Add value before asking for it. And finally, stay in the game. David's first Netflix project, The Politician, didn't make him a superstar. Neither did his role in Hollywood. But each time, he gained fans, skills, press, visibility. And he doubled down. Stayed humble. Focused on progress. Success online is a marathon disguised as a sprint. Every blog post, every YouTube video, every piece of content is a brick. Eventually, those bricks build your empire. Whether it's 100 followers or 100,000, serve them well. Your audience is your business. Right now, David Corenswet is Superman. But more importantly, he's proof that your moment comes after your preparation. So here's what you do next. Get clear on what you're building. Define your niche, your audience, your value. Build your digital presence. One platform at a time. With authenticity. Create consistently. Don't wait for perfect. Publish. Get feedback. Improve. Invest in your growth. Buy the books. Take the course. Upgrade your gear. Collaborate. Share your journey. Build a community, not just a brand. Leverage trends. Just like this video is leveraging Superman's rise, you can use trending topics to spark discovery. Stay in the game. No matter how small the traction is right now. Keep going. Remember, your moment might not go viral. It might come in the form of a DM, a client referral, a podcast invite, a brand partnership. But it only happens if you stay visible. Stay building. Stay ready. Because the world isn't looking for more noise. It's looking for real voices. Yours included. David Corenswet was once just another kid with a dream and a script. Today, he's Superman. Not because he was lucky, but because he kept going when no one was watching. And now, the world is watching him. You could be next. So if this hit something in you, don't let it fade. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling us what you're building. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. This channel is here to show you that the rise is real. For anyone willing to build, to believe, and to begin.